the topic of, well, employee engagement and performance. So, is it right?
I hope so.
Why do we have to talk
we'll
about
see.
this? So we heard already lots of thinking about, yes, the engagement is down, we have an engagement problem. Can we solve it only with leadership models, or is there more to say about this?
Well, no, I think it's more around the entire business model that you're looking to approach and what you're actually trying to achieve as a business, and it's a means to that end.
Great.
Okay.
So it's you.
Right. Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name's John. I work for IBM, and I found this Dilbert cartoon last night, which I decided to put on the front, which is, isn't employee engagement from a managed perspective just about that means that you work harder for the same money? Because sometimes it can be seen like that. And I'm actually really excited to be asked to talk on this topic rather than just talking about social. I've been doing this for quite some time now. Where's David? Where's David Terra? Where's he? When was Varese? Where do we? 2007. So that was one of the first conferences I went to. I had the pleasure of meeting David. We actually joke. He lives about a mile around the corner from me, and we only meet in Paris or Germany or at conferences like this. I sometimes see him check in at the local coffee store just down the road, and I kind of sprint down to see maybe we can actually meet where we actually live. But it's bumping into these people in this community. But I think both a lot of people I've been talking with, and my own argument for quite some time has been that social will only ever be successful if it's actually tied to business results and a business process. And that's how you get around. That's where all the conversations around does social have an ROI? What's the real value of social? Kind of go away if you're actually approaching a direct business problem, because then the ROI of social is solving that business problem. Social in itself doesn't necessarily have an ROI. So it's really exciting to be actually talking about something I hope we'll touch on today, which is the HR function, as was said before. And we do a CEO study every 2 years at IBM where we go and get to ask CEOs of a lot of our customers what the top thing is on their minds. And the recent things that's come back is not social or adoption. It's actually the value that they get out of the biggest cost actually on their ledger, which is their people. And if you think about it, after you've done all your, you think about the store that Dan was talking about earlier, where Damien works. Actually, the only thing that is going to make that experience is if he can find that gluten-free popcorn, is whether or not Damien feels empowered and engaged to actually get out his phone and have a look. It's the same popcorn. It wasn't the store. What was the brand? If you're allowed to say it. But you could have bought that brand of popcorn in any store, right? It wasn't the store's own brand. The difference is, do those employees actually make a difference? And that makes a differentiator that compels him to write a letter, even if you were being a little cheeky about it, but to say, this is a great customer experience, and I want to probably going to go back to that store. Now you've actually done that. And the HR function itself is kind of changing at the minute. So we kind of see it as not necessarily, some comments about what am I doing in HR, but it's actually something where we kind of see a change here, right? Where it starts off as the last bureaucracy and something that is not necessarily seen as a change agent in an organization. Actually, I compare it a little bit to how the role of the CIO has changed. So CIOs used to be keep the lights on, weird people who worked in funny rooms with big machines who did stuff that the business didn't really understand and was just a cost center. And now with social and mobile and e-commerce, and now actually have a seat at the table at the executive board as the CIO being a key revenue driver. But it wasn't always that way. And I think we start to see the same change in HR, where actually we start to see HR evolving into something that is really driving a strategic metrics. And one of those key things is employee engagement. Because as we see, it makes a difference to business results. So we see this HR evolution occurring, and we see 4 key trends that we find that are actually driving this change in the world of work. Okay, one is the rise of social in the workplace. So this is changing how people expect, not just in terms of the tools they're given, but in terms of how they expect to be able to interact with their colleagues. The end of a command and control environment, a flat organization. I actually watched a video last night by one of our executives at IBM. and he was telling the story of how, not actually using our social platform, but just on an email, one of our sales reps emailed this guy and said, I've got a problem, there's all these IBM processes getting in the way, you're a pretty senior guy, can you help me fix it? And he was like, great, and he jumped on it and he fixed the problem. Okay, what happened next? About 4 or 5 layers of management went up in arms. Why did you go straight to him? You could have come to me, et cetera, et cetera. And this guy's reaction was, I don't care. I'm not going to bring it up at their performance reviews that this got escalated to me and I had to step in and I had to do my manager's job for them. That's not the point. The point is we overcame a customer problem quickly and we fixed it. And this requires a cultural change, and we find this as well. Not the guy at the top gets it, right? And one of his key frustrations is that he doesn't get to hear quickly enough about problems that are going on because the management trying to pretend that everything's okay. And the guys on the floor get it because they want to go and we want to let the company get out of the way, take the chains off, and actually get the job done. Right? And how do we, but it's the cultural thing in the middle and the engagement that allows a manager to feel secure and confident that, yeah, you can go and talk to that top guy and get stuff done. It means it's less on my plate to do. So the rise of social in the workplace is changing a lot. And then also the rise of big data and analytics. We'll talk about this a bit, but there's all sorts of stats I could bore you with about how fast data is growing. But also we're getting a huge amount of insight into the performance and what makes people good at their jobs. Why is someone really, really excel in a certain role in a certain company? And then this data is supplemented by all the stuff we see in social, both inside and outside the company. It's creating a huge amount of data that we can actually start to predict performance and actually look at where people, take those engagement scores and actually turn them into real business metrics. Cloud and mobile are changing as well. This comes down to the speed factor. People, as well, an always-on culture, but people expect to be able to find the people they need and get stuff done when they are out and about and on mobile. So we have, in IBM, we've provided our employees with an expertise locator app for Android and iOS. So a simple app that I can just use and search on expertise. If I meet someone at a conference and I need to find an expert in big data, I can find that really quickly and easily for a mobile device, which changes the way then that you interact with people at work. I may have no idea who this person is, but I can find them, I can introduce myself to them. I said, hey, can you talk to this person I just met? That requires a cultural change that, that expert needs to be prepared to receive that call and receive that request for help, which changes the way we work. And then finally, kind of the rise of the independent worker, where 30% of workers in the US now describe themselves as no-collar, so not blue-collar, white-collar, no-collar workers. And the average person coming into a workplace today will have 8 or 9 careers. That's not 8 or 9 different jobs of different companies, but 8 or 9 different careers, like moving from discipline to discipline. And this is creating a huge challenge in terms of engagement because you have to work a hell of a lot harder to keep these people when they feel so much more empowered to move jobs or work for themselves or become independent, which changes how you're going to work with them. So that requires new thinking in HR. So we have this kind of, we have this old think in terms of what are the problems, what are the people problems that we have. Okay, which is, they join trade unions, they complain a lot, they take out legal cases. This is kind of the classic concern of old HR, or HR as a cost center. Now we have a different challenge. We have challenge that people leave that I would rather stay. Also, people stay that I would rather leave, right? Just as, if not more of a problem. People come to work and don't give their best, the problem of engagement. And they badmouth the company at the barbecue, but also on social media. What are they saying about me? When our CEO, she does like quarterly video messages, Ginny Rometty, so that's like 400,000 people watching that. We run analytics on all the comments that people post on our social network so we can give her real-time feedback in terms of what did people think, what was the reaction, which bits, which bits did they react to differently. And really you think in terms of not only can I measure this, but I can start to predict it. Okay? If we have to cut costs over here, what will the reaction be? What will the reaction to engagement be, and then what will be the impact on business results? And this is where HR, these are the things that we're working when you look at, go into an organization and you say, or I'm here to talk to you about social. Okay? At the back of that executive's mind, they're not thinking about social. They're thinking about key metrics that they run their business on every Monday morning. Okay, for the store example, in retail, maybe that store measured number of items in the shopping cart. Right? Maybe that's their key metric that they focus on and look at every Monday morning. Now, how does putting that sign up saying no mobile phones allowed affect the number of items they put in the shopping cart every Monday morning? When you actually power and enable, how many more items, 12 cartons you bought, right? 12, how many items does that employee taking his phone out and making that difference impact the number of items that Dan put in his shopping cart? Okay, and multiply that out and multiply that out. And it's the engagement level of the employee that makes that difference. And this is what HR are starting to think about now, right? We're no longer will come to us if you need to do a redundancy round or if you need a maternity leave policy or all these kind of things. They need to be forcing themselves to have a seat at the table to say, we can help you increase sales per square foot, right? We can help you with time to resolution in a call center. And when you start talking about these issues, this is what business care about, and it's a totally different discussion to the kumbaya, we need to increase engagement because we need people to be nice, and the way to do that is to use social technology because social is the way everyone should be working. And please don't ask me about the ROI, okay, which is the conversation that I myself have been guilty of having. So this is kind of a model that we are looking at, and the kind of a strap line is how do we replace guesswork with precision when we look at these things, when you look at talent, if that is the key thing. If social is a means, right, it's not an end. It's about unlocking the potential talent of an organization. The talent discussion goes much wider than that. Okay, how do we attract talent? How do we actually get the right people into our organization? How do we engage them? How do we optimize the talent that we have got? How do we get out of their way to let them do their jobs? How do we recognize and reward talent? And then finally, what analytics can we have so we actually know what we're doing and replace this guesswork with precision? I was with a CHRO recently who said, if my colleagues at the executive board table guessed, right, if the head of risk, it was a bank, if the head of risk guessed as much as I do, I didn't make the comment that maybe they had been guessing as much, but anyway, they'd be fired, right? And I'm responsible, the CHRO said, I'm responsible for the biggest cost on the ledger. Yeah, I get to do all the guesswork, and I have no facility for precision on this. So I just want to quickly talk through these 5 things that we have here. So talent acquisition is not just about, how do we handle the volume of applications we get. Okay, talent acquisition is making sure, how do we get the right person for the job? There's lots of systems out there that will allow you to hire bad people really, really quickly. Okay, it's not simply about filling the position. How do we actually make sure we get the right person? Is a programmer at IBM the same as the programmer at Apple? Are they going to be just as successful, even though they have the same skills and the same CV? You think about CVs for a minute. If you think about, people don't leave organizations, right? They leave bad managers. So if you'll think about for a minute the best manager you ever had in your career. Okay, just think of that person. Now think of the skills and the quality. What was it that made them the best manager that you ever had? What was it about them? Told the truth, yeah. Was that on his CV or her CV? No. Not at all. Any of the skills that you have tend not to be on CV. Think of it the other way around. Think of the worst manager you ever had and what made them terrible. I bet that wasn't on their CV anyway. That's kind of the point, that CVs do not necessarily say a good job. You could have a programmer with exactly the right kind of skills, but culturally, do they fit in your organization? So one of the things that we do is we help companies create these simulations, which are kind of similar to the stuff that you were showing earlier, Dan. But this is where we put people in situations and we say, how will you react to make sure that we find, are you going to fit the culture? Are you going to work the way we work? And you can start to actually predict the likelihood of success that you're actually going to fit and you're going to work the way that our company works. You are the sort of person who is going to collaborate if that's what is looked for in your organization. But it's not just as simple as that. This is you can go onto IKEA. There was one Swedish person in the room, right? So you can go onto IKEA.com, and I always have to be careful how I present this. But Swedish people can be a bit different. I mean, you saw that traffic mess earlier, right? But IKEA is a different place to work than your average furniture store. It's not the same as a regular furniture store. There's something. The company has a personality just as much as the experience of shopping there. So this is a quiz that you go through, and you can go onto IKEA.com and take this. And as you go through it, it will paint the room as you answer the questions, and it will show you if you're going to fit into the culture. Are you going to be do the way you work? Does that fit with the way IKEA works? And unfortunately for me, it said that I should seek alternative employment and not go for a job in IKEA. But it's making sure that you are going to be successful in this organization. And we do this as well. This is our soon-to-be blue community. So this is a social community that we invite people into in that crucial period after they've accepted a job offer, but before they've actually joined the company. So this is taking induction to the level before you actually come in. So you start to meet your team, and you can start to get ahead of the game before day one. And so then when you come into IBM, and obviously you join the new hire social community, you already know most of the team. You had that experience. And this has managed to reduce the killer period in hiring if you leave 6 months after you join, where the company's put in all the investment and you haven't given anything back. We've managed to reduce this by 6 or 7 percentage points by engaging with these employees in that accepted but not joined yet period to start that induction early and get them used to working and collaborating in the way we do. Leadership and engagement, I think, I won't dwell too much on it because we already heard some really good stuff about this earlier. But I did want to talk about Caterpillar. When you look at why is engagement important? Why does engagement matter? We found at Caterpillar, the big stat for me is 3 times fewer accidents at Caterpillar plants where we have high engagement scores compared to low engagement scores. So this is actually physical accidents that get prevented by employee engagement. So if we can actually identify and allow people to look at the problem, if we do have low engagement, increase it, we can actually hit some serious business metrics that are going to be affecting us. And then we're looking to apply social in the way of classic engagement surveys. So engagement surveys have been around for a while. That's how we get the numbers that you saw in the earlier presentation. But why can't we also apply social to this as well? Right? Why can't we present the results to the individual managers in a more meaningful way? Why can't we have idea jams so we can vote on ideas to improve engagement? So we've seen engagement scores are high here and low there. Let's collaborate in a more social way to actually get people to buy in and have everyone own the engagement problem. So it's not just the problem of HR, but that's actually the problem of the people engaged in terms of how we're going to actually do things differently here. And again, when you work in this way, it's not a case about, social, what's the ROI of social? Using social tools to increase engagements, which in Caterpillar's case reduces accidents by 3 times. Or in the case of retail, increases the number of items in each shopping cart, which is the stat that the execs obsess about every Monday morning. So talent optimization is all about getting out of the way, like the story I said earlier about how being able to openly communicate. But it's a key question as to whether your culture is going to allow you to do that. How are your senior managers going to respond if you flatten the organization and you allow people to talk directly to the CEO? How is that going to affect you? One of the stories one of our customer stories is where a young summer student at a DIY store had a great idea of a novel store display that she created and quickly sold out of the paint trays that she was selling. And the system wouldn't let her order more than 10, right? Because that was the process. So instead of emailing her manager and saying, hey, I want to order more of these paint trays, she posted it on her social network site. And you might think the response would be someone came back and said, okay, well, here's how you bypass the system. That's not what they said. They said, how the hell are you selling more than 10 paint trays? We can't shift 5. So she shared the idea about the store display. The idea spread virally throughout the organization and all the different stores, and it resulted in $1 million extra revenue per year for that chain. Because you're working out loud, because they optimize the talent and you let the business get out of the way to get them to do their jobs. But then when you think about that from a talent perspective, the question then becomes, okay, so that was nice, but how do we hire more people like that? Right? How can we actually put something in place so when we hire more of these college summer students, we can actually hire people and make sure they are people who are more likely to engage in this way? And that's where, looking at talent acquisition as well as just optimizing the talent you've already got becomes crucially important. In terms of talent recognition rewards, there's a lot that can be done around, salary obviously becomes a key issue, but I think it's a mistake not to think that's the only way people are recognized. So this is an example where Ginny Rometty, our CEO, personally reaches out and congratulates people publicly on our social networking site for people who receive the Best of IBM award, which is the top 100 performers in the company get this award. And this has changed by her. This award has been around for a very long time in IBM. But for her to actually recognize people and announce it in this public way, in a social way, has completely changed the awareness and the value of that award. It's now seen as something, everyone knows about it. It's saying, oh, now I want to get that next year because of the way that the people are recognized. But it's also important from a motivation perspective as well to realize, why is it that people come and work for your company every day? We work with a pharmaceutical company. They're quite small, only about 750 people. And they won a new contract. And they had to hire about 200 scientists. So again, how do we get the right talent into the organization? And that's going to change the culture. You bring 200 people into an organization of 750, that's quite a lot. That's quite a shift. So the way they went about it was, well, we were working with them, we asked them the question, why do people come to work for you every day? And they said, well, because we're a pharmaceutical company, we're going to cure cancer. That's why people want to come and work with us. And we actually did a bit of investigation. We found that wasn't the case at all. They came to work, those 750 came to work because they got to do cool, geeky stuff in the science lab. Just happened to cure disease. But here's the problem from a rewards and recognition perspective. If you've got a group of people who seek recognition by doing cool science stuff in a lab, and you go and hire 250 who seek recognition because they want to go and cure cancer, you're going to have a massive clash. And you're going to have huge problems in getting that team working together. They will not be engaged. And you're not going to bring your drugs to market or whatever the key performance index that organization uses. And so finally, analytics is something that really belongs in all of these angles, but we kind of pull it out because it's so important. And there's a whole range of analytics that can be done, everything from looking at the basic questioning in terms of how many people have we hired, how long does it take us to fill a slot, all the way through what could happen, okay? Which candidate is most likely to succeed? Looking through more prescriptive, what action should I take? We're doing a lot of work around proactive retention. So looking proactively at which of the top performers in your organization, those knowledge holders, the people who are the social hubs of your organization, are they likely, which of those are likely to leave and what action can be taken ahead of time to keep them? All the way through to, all the way through to what are the interview questions I should be asking this candidate in order to make sure they fit our culture and they are going to be engaged and they're going to fit in with our organization. Also looking at what are people saying about us. So I mentioned looking internally. So the CEO has just done a keynote speech to the whole organization. What is the response to it? What are people saying on the social networks? But also externally. So we, in Australia, we actually had a little bit of a recruitment issue because an MP in Australian Parliament stood up and said bad things about IBM and their tax affairs in Australia. And that spread virally on social networks in Australia, and we had a problem with recruitment. So how is that affecting what we do? And I just want to finish on a story around that with the analytics. So AMC is a cinema chain. And if you go back to what I was saying at the start, what are the key metrics that your organization focuses on every Monday morning? So for them, it was popcorn sales, right? That's the one thing that this cinema focused on, because that make or break their revenue. So they looked at what makes great popcorn sellers. Why are they engaged? Right? That's what they looked at. Not the people negotiating film distribution rights or anything like that, but what makes great popcorn sellers? And what makes great popcorn seller managers? Why do they all work? Why do we find pockets where they all work for the same managers and the bad ones all work for the same manager as well? And then how do we hire and attract and engage people to actually do this and share the learning so that they can actually do simulations of how to do customer service, how to do great customer service, share great practices for a social network and bring everything together. And by doing that, it resulted in a 1.2% increase in profit per customer. So similar to the kind of the financial success stories that Dan was showing, employee engagement, right, drives customer satisfaction, which drives profits. And we think this is the framework that we use to try and provide around that. And in really looking at it, embedding social in the process, rather than seeing process as something on the side, has really helped us both internally and with our customers. So thank you very much.
Are there any questions already? Dan, yeah. Just take your seat. Those. So, again, Jon, so basically we have to bring, that was also one of the title of the session, we have to bring back the passion into work. Is that the key to this? And tools just need to support bringing this passion into work.
Well, I think there's two sides to it. So you have to have a relationship. You have to have a match with your employer. So employee engagement is where the employer values the employee and the employee values the employer. So you have to have a match there. But then at the same time, you can't have a perfect match. You bring someone in, and then you have a command and control hierarchy. You don't give them the tools to actually get the job done. So I think it's both sides of the same coin there.
You would add that we need those leadership models to really to add this passion back into work. Is that right?
Yeah. For me, ultimately, let's take startups out of the equation for a second here, and let's just look at SMBs and large enterprise that have been around for years. The models of leadership are deplorable. At the end of the day, people are looking back or utilizing models that have existed for decades, if not centuries. And in fact, it was the Romans who came up with command and control to help, conquer the Roman Empire. And so I think we keep looking back on, well, how did Johnny lead me, or how did Sally lead me when I was X or Y? That's a huge part of this, is that we're looking back to yesterday as the way in which that's how management occurs, and it's incorrect. The second thing I'll add is we're conditioned as children with the schooling system to believe that's how we should manage. So we have equal part issue with, I think, what the schooling system does, i.e. the sage on the stage, the principal, the vice principal. When you're in trouble, you go to the office. When you do well, you get an A. When you don't do well, you get an F, and you are graded, and then you get elevated to the next level, higher education, and the next level is corporate. Our management structure is a remnant of us thinking, well, to be the smartest, I need to be the teacher or the principal, ergo, I need to command that classroom, i.e. my employees, in which to get blood from a stone.
So you need disobedience classes for the induction phase?
Yeah, fair enough, sure.
But I think that's kind of part of the story I was telling earlier about how someone used a social tool at IBM to cut through the hierarchy, go straight to the decision maker, and then in the middle, this eruption of people who didn't add any value, suddenly complaining that they weren't involved or engaged. And I think that that's kind of the model. You know, you broke the chain of command. It's like, well, actually, the chain of command isn't important. What's important in this situation was fixing the problem for the customer.
Here's a great example of that. So in one of our buildings at TELUS across Canada, one of the major centers, so one of the larger cities, a building's, I guess, vice president of facilities, if that's the best term, decided unilaterally to remove all the plants, i.e. the green things, from the building. And this is a couple years ago, but there was an absolute mutiny. And the reason there was a mutiny inside of this building was because the vice president of facilities did not engage with the employees, explore the options of what to do with the plants before they were executed or what have you. So mea culpa was issued, and he says, I'm really sorry, that's not our leadership principle or principles. So they said, can I have a redo? And the redo was, he in this case, asked the people in the building what they'd like to do with the plants. And the plants were effectively adopted by all the employees, saying, I'll take the plant, don't throw them out.
So, well, we are talking about this this need for a new leadership model and this need for more passion in putting more passion into work already several years. People are also project leads within the social initiatives. They are trying to bring this idea into the company, but still the company are not moving. So how can we advance? What are your recommendations on this? So what should be one or two next steps to really go this way?
Well, I mean, I think it comes down to, it's never going to get the attention that it needs unless you're focused on a business problem. So whether it's number of items in a shopping cart at a retail store, or how quickly for a pharmaceutical can you get a drug to market. I mean, as much as we might want people to think of doing social for the sake of social, until you actually tie it back to something that makes a difference, you know, like the kind of stock price achievement that you guys have done.
But this was also the relation made to the linkage to the market was made later. So you first introduced the leadership model, and then you recognize that it changed some of your market data. So it was not forcing from the outside. So we need to do something about the market. Therefore, we need more engaged people. In your case?
Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm not trying to be an arrogant, blunt goof from Canada here, but couldn't we just put?
Yeah, you got cut.
Time to go. Couldn't we not just put the word human back in humanity? And don't you think that really at the end of the day, leaders and leadership want the same thing we all do, which is to do a pretty good job? I think there is a level of, in many organizations, frustration, if not a conundrum, like, why are we doing this? And I'm not getting into this debate about capitalism and the 1%ers today, but when you think about it, don't people genuinely want to be a better person on this planet? And for us, at least, that's what happened. And now we're seeing a little bit of the, I guess, the end of the beginning occur.
Okay, are there any more questions? Yeah, one.
I'm curious about the picture from '67. You know, there was a referendum in Sweden and 75% said no to right-hand traffic. But we had smart politicians saying that's going to cost a lot. Lesson for UK. So they decided to switch. And there were a lot of campaigns telling that people cannot handle this. The control and command, right? But the crowdsourcing, they managed this in an hour. So what looks like chaos, that's actually the most trafficked place in that morning at 5 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. In the other places of the country, everything went smooth. So lesson from this, trust people. I agree.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Most people want to do good things. Let them do that. Bring passion back.
Okay,
Thanks.
great. Thank you. Yes.